how can LunarPunks use this new way of doing things, zero knowledge cryptography, to create decentralized and private networks to defend themselves and liberate themselves from state persecution? How does zero knowledge cryptography provide these benefits to people?
On the question how LunarPunks use zero knowledge cryptography and can create decentralized and private networks for self-defense and liberation. Well, not too long ago, I was reading on a DarkFight testnet announcement, and honestly, this provides part of the answer for what you're asking here. And this is not for me to say to show the project, but there is this one primitive which we're really looking into, and I think it's missing a lot, and that is Anonymous DAOs. Anonymous DAO primitive, to say better. And that's something we have really on our radar and got very excited about. In fact, I'll admit fully among the founders, and we spoke about it also on our roadmap completely transparently, that the LunarDAOs would be nice if be voting on investing into the team to deliver, develop, and test properly and put on a mainnet this primitive of Anonymous DAO, and then next having a discussion and vote on migration to such primitive and go out of ETH into whatever network will be running on. Another one, Monero is undergoing quite an upgrade on the ring signature. If I'm not mistaken, I haven't read into the documentation yet, but that Anonymity said having that upgrade will basically create or put Monero in an unstoppable position after that. An important thing is that for us, like the privacy coins or privacy crypto solutions, it's important to point out because there's many projects using those like buzzwords for marketing, and they're not really any of those. But on the other hand, I wish that privacy crypto is something which we're just gonna call money one day, But also on this ZK solution and the cryptography, you had this point in the beginning speaking about the elections in the UK, and this brings us to interesting point when people would have arguments why to be anon in that, why to be anonymous and private in that. And indeed, there is many instances when you don't want to be anonymous, use like voice modifier and all that kind of stuff, right? In fact, there are moments when you even need to somewhat verify some credentials. For example, in some sort of vote that you're not voting as multiple people. And I'm not here speaking of governmental elections. I'm speaking of actually useful things which can improve people's lives. Not choosing another somebody else who's gonna steal from you and run like this out of real life.
Yeah.
And then we come to the fact that the anonymity doesn't have to be for everyone and forever, but it's a good default strategy from which using zero knowledge proofs and this cryptography, different information, credentials, and verifications can be disclosed. But it should be on a choice of a user, or choice of a community, or choice of whoever runs and provides this, but not on that the user or like the voter has to go to find another form to opt out, as you said, right? To flip this mentality about what's default and what's based on like chosen disclosure, and using zero knowledge for that and not using a full ID, KYC, passport kind of information. I have another argument for why I think this is very important, because even if Forbes don't see their governments as something dangerous for having these data, don't see all these like big corporates like as a threat for basically using their data for profit, they still should consider one thing, and that is, if you believe your government now, today, and the government's gonna change into more authoritarian one, into a pure fascist government, they're not gonna be asking you if you want to change your mind and take your data away. You see what I mean? So I think by having the anonymity as default and being able to disclose, you're protecting yourself also for the future, because these metadata, they'll be never erased. And again, we're coming back to zero-knowledge cryptography, which can provide a lot of these solutions. And I'm very glad to see that we got some people from the Linux community and from the crypto community and some hackers and privacy-oriented developers who are learning, researching, and also implementing and teaching on cryptography and on the usage of zero-knowledge and proofs and verification.
Unchecked governments have eradicated privacy and truth. Those who resist are brought down swiftly, but we refuse to submit. Lunarpunks are freedom fighters, protected by encrypted shadows. The future we're building is sovereign and uncensorable. The moonlit night is coming.